Hello again, welcome back to JDM Skips. So, we are going back onto the MX5. If you haven't seen the last videos, you won't know what exactly is happening with this thing, but if you don't, this might help you figure it out. So, obviously just keep all the dust out, tucked away the engine under there, and everything that belongs to the engine on there. Now, this had a, let me just see if I can find your bearings, that one. This had a massive bottom end knock, and if you take one look at that, it's easy to figure out why. There's no end to that one, so it's not even like complete, and it's really wafer thin at one point as well, so that's absolutely no good. But we have now, I'm going to show you, move all this out the way. So, crankshaft is there for it. Now, I spoke about before, if you watch the old videos, I spoke about buying like a used crank or something like that, but what I decided to do in the end is that is the original crank that came out of the engine, and instead of just kind of chancing it on another crank on somebody else's wood, I decided to just send the crank out, have it machined, all new bearings in for it, and then we'll literally just rebuild it like that, put that back into there. Now, the one where the bad bearings are in, of that one, which is cylinder 1, what I also was thinking about this one is, because of how bad they've worn, and the others are really not that bad, there's a chance that all that in there, and the cap that goes on top of it, is not actually perfectly rounded anymore. So what I'm thinking is, instead of taking the chance of putting the lab back together, in this little box down there, I can't get it out with one hand, but long story short, I've got another, hold on. There we go. So I've got another conrod for it, and instead of sort of taking our chances, I'd rather just do that. But obviously that means one thing, that means we've got to take the head off to do it. There's in the other box there's a oil pump and timing kit anyway, so we might as well do all of that while we're in there. Oil pump's just there, so it's so easy to get to, and that may have even, for whatever reason, caused that. But anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to swap over all that, we're going to whip the head off it, put the new second-hand but new piston and conrod in, and we will, I'm actually really tempted to use the same piston that's already in the block and just swap it over and just use a new conrod, just because that one will already be worn to the bore, piston rings are perfect sized, and we don't have to do the checks and measurements realistically on that, because it's just, it had no compression issues, it was just the bottom end that was gone. So I might do that, I might put that all together, turn this back over, we'll just have to take the inlet off, exhaust side off, and pretty much to do that and then just pull the heads off. But we've already got a timing chain, it's not a massive distance to go to do it, so I'm thinking of just doing that, and then it'll future proof and we won't have any issues, so let's do it. Right, so exhaust side came off really easy, just a matter of heat shield, as you saw, and then the bolts that hold all that on, and then a mounting bracket lower down. I've already moved that. And then this was a little bit more tricky, just because of the EGR valve pipe work there, just because it sticks, protrudes so far into the manifold, and then once you do get it off, you can't like go far enough that way, so I took the thermostat housing off as well. We'll replace that while we're there anyway. And then last was the little PCV hose that just got in the way there. So that was all alright. We'll clean all this out while we're there, refresh the entire engine because that'll be way better, and then next I just need to take the cams out, and I pretty much, I believe, can take the head off at that. The EGR will all go with it. Just need to take off this coolant pipe, just that one from there, and then that can stay with the block. So yeah, cams, coolant pipe, head off. Right, I took a little bit doing. I'm definitely feeling a little bit underpowered, shall we say, today. So, up to now, I think everything's out. We should be able to lift the head straight off. I think everything's still on it. We'll go with it. So, we should be alright at that, I think. Let's just make a space to put the head down. Right then. All this just to change a piston. Or should I say, a rod. There we go, so the block surface should be pretty much clean where it will meet the head. I might give that a little bit more go afterwards, but it looks alright. Blew it all out with the airline just so that there's no kind of crap sat in the way and nothing sat in the holes that I've scraped off with the blade. And then it's going to be simply new gasket on, which hasn't come yet, and then head back on, and obviously exhaust and inlet back on that you've seen me take off and the cam's on. And then we can turn it back upside down, put the refurb crank back in it. We get new main bearings and new big end bearings, redo all that, and simply slowly put it back together until it's fully back in engine again, and then obviously back in there. So yeah, kind of waiting for the head gasket to come now, but you know. Do you know what? If you watch the channel, hang on. If you don't, this is something to watch. So you might have seen, if you do watch the channel, the wheels that I got for one of my Subarus, not this Subaru, the other one, the massive roadster GTRs. Now, this turned up a few days ago, which is, everything's still packaged up, but they are the arches for the Subaru. So, if you want to see what happens with that, make sure you subscribe, and you will see all of that come to light. I'm going to reassemble this, and then we're going to get it back together as soon as the head gasket comes, and then we can carry on. Okay, so I can't actually get the head gasket till tomorrow, so I don't want to kind of wait forever just to do something simple. So what I would rather do is I would rather put the bottom end together so we can take out the old main bearings. Now the centre of this one, that one, is the thrust bearing, which is there. What that means is it's got the edge on it, which stops the crank travelling backwards and forwards. But these ones, they don't. They're just like a horseshoe shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap these out now, clean all this up while everything's out, and then I will get these new bearings. The big one's the main bearings, and the other one is for the big ends. So I'm going to clean all that up, I'm going to get everything out, and we'll start putting it all back together. So what you might notice there, and what you need to do whenever you build anything like this, oil both sides of the bearing. This is just a little bit of oil that I've got in a little cap there. Run it all over your finger, and just make sure that the underside of the bearing, as you put it in, is covered in oil, so that when you first turn the key to try and start the car up, you don't just fry it. And because if it's dry, it will do no good at all. It will do quite the opposite, and you will knacker all of your brand new bearings straight away. So that's a good tip. That's what I always do. This is where I've always done engines, and it's always worked. All I'll do is same again on top. The other half of the main bearings go into that, which secures the crank, and then oil into there. Obviously put the caps on when the crank's in. Oil into there. Just make sure that everything is lubed up so that when you first turn the key, you don't have to wait for the pump to give it pressure. Because everything's going to be bone dry, because this is like a fresh rebuild now. So always do that, always, no matter what. Just make sure it's got oil in it. So I'm going to move on now. I'm going to do the other side. I'm going to put the crank into place. Since the last clip, so it's been a couple of days since that clip. I felt a little bit rough that day, so I did say at one point, so my brain was all over the place, and basically the camera went flat. So what I ended up doing is crank all in, all sorted out, sump in, oil pump in, the oil pump timing chain in there. I've still got to put the rear cover on with the rear main seal, which I'm going to replace the seal obviously while I'm there, just to stop any future oil leaks. Next thing is turn it over. We've got the, where is it? We do have, it's there. We do have the head gasket now as well, so we can now put the new gasket on and head back on, and that means obviously that on. Exhaust, alternator, cams, inlet manifold, water pipes, all that can go back together. So I'm going to start doing that now, and then we can have a complete engine again, or nearly a complete engine. I can't really put that rear seal housing on, which is this thing. I can't assemble that until I've got it off the stand, just because of where it sits on the stand. I can't get the bolts in stuff, so that'll have to be done afterwards. But all that is back together now, and so we can, like I say, have a complete engine and start putting back together and eventually get back in there. So let's get to it. So one thing I want to do obviously is, I've got to do the timing when I put the head back on anyway. Got all new timing chain as I said, but to get the timing right, what you need to do is you need to take out this little 10mm there, because behind that, if I just pop that out, don't fall on the floor. Thank you. Pop that out. There's like a space behind it where you can line up with the crank essentially. And because this is basically a Ford engine, I've done like loads of Ford engines before. So, and I'm not entirely certain which one it is. I think it's one of the shorter two. The packet's really dusty, but you can see what I mean. So put that on there so we can turn the crank over. And then what we need to do is get cylinder 1 to like TDC. So I always love watching that kind of thing. Right, so that's nearly at TDC now. Now what we need to do is just find the correct size pin from this set. I think it's going to be like the medium sized one. I don't know why. But if we screw that into there, if it's the right size, it'll roughly be in the right place at that point. See that sound there? That was a crank looking up against the pin. So now that will spin backwards, but it won't actually spin any further forwards. It just sits against the pin. Now, you'll see this afterwards, but the other side of the timing is that this bar essentially sits in the back side of the cams, which is, if I show you, they've got these little grooves in there, that little slot. So that bar just sits in there. And then once that pin's in and once they're level, they just sort of time up, and that's how it works. So I'm gonna clean this up again, put the head gasket on, and then torque it all down. So there we have it, head's back on. What you just seen is me like running them in with the little impact gun. I don't ever, before anybody says anything, I don't ever like try and torque them up with that. All I do is just take all the threads up, because obviously, if not, they're a mile long to do the job, and nobody needs that kind of wrist action, particularly not in the garage. So what we're going to do is now I'm going to go back around, torque them all up like they're supposed to be. We've got the little sheet that comes with the head gasket, tells me everything I need to know, the order, the tightening torques and everything like that. So I'm going to go back around, I'm going to tighten everything up, and then inlet and exhaust to go back on it. So it'll be like a complete engine, obviously, once we've timed it and tightened it. So let's get to that. We'll tighten everything down and then start putting the cams back in. Right, so as you see, cams are back in, head's torqued down. These still need torquing, I haven't done that yet, but I just wanted to get everything lined up first. Because I've put the bottom end to TDC on piston 1, obviously with the pin in that I showed you, I can't send the cams past a certain point because it'll try and push the valves into pistons 1 and 4, so I'm having to stay away from that now. So the best thing to do is, as you refit these, just make sure that you're somewhere near lined up to get this bar in to time everything. So that's in. I'll torque these down and timing chain can then go on, because that's all timed up now. Obviously we've got like guides and stuff to put on, but we've got a lot to do. So that is the whole engine all back together, timed up. I swapped over the cam pulleys. The thing is, when you do these, you can take them off because the cams are locked and the cranks locked. They'll all line up no matter what. So you can take them off, spin these around as much as you want, and then once you've got all the timing chain on, all tightened up and in place and everything, then you can worry about putting it back like in the right places, because that's not going to move with the pins and the bar in the end. So that's that. Right. We need to do a bit of a clean up on the front so the sealant all seals up, because we've got a seal all the way around the case and the cover and everything. And I just need to make sure that's all the right torque and clean all that up. Same with the top end, just retorque those, clean all that up, and then slip the top cover on, and that should be all good. We'll turn it over by hand, obviously, make sure it's all good. Okay, so I've put the cover on, sealed it all up, all the def little bolts around it. One thing I did learn, and this is trial and error, and this is why you should always turn the engine over before you actually like try and start it. Basically, once I put everything together, what I showed you before, tried to turn the engine over, but as I tightened up these, the actual bottom pulley bolt, because that wasn't on and that wasn't tight, what had happened is the little, let me show you the old one. So this just spins on the shaft. This is like what holds the crankshaft end of the timing chain. And when I tightened up the top, that had spun around on its own because there's no like keyway to stop it. So what I realized is I couldn't actually turn the engine over. So I had to go back, retime it. And I've just redone everything. But what I've done is put the bar back in that end, the pin back in there. And then what you have to do on this end is there's a little like hole in the front of the case for this to go in the right place, because if that's not in the right place, the crank sensor won't be happy, and I'm pretty sure the crank sensor's on backwards, but I can turn that around, that's not a problem. But if you don't get that all the right way around, as I say, it won't run properly, you won't be able to turn it over. I will still turn this over again by hand before it goes too far. I'll take that out, and yeah, all the basic stuff. Like I said, you just got to double check these things. It's just saved me a whole load of hassle, so do that. There we go, there we have a pretty much complete engine. There is only small things like this to go in, like these little bolts there, basically, when the car is fitted in a Ford, which is what the engine belongs to, that is where the engine mount goes, but obviously because of this being rear wheel drive, it sits the other way around, so they just sort of blank those holes off. I've just got to slip the coil packs in, which is a 2-second job, rear cover when it comes off the stand, and that is about it realistically. There's not much else to do, just as I said. So I'm going to leave this video here. Make sure you subscribe, and then you'll see the video where it goes back into the car, which I think could be this week if I get a chance to do it. But there's big talks at the moment about what's happening with the Subaru, because for those who don't know, and I'm going to bore you with the details, all of England is coming out of lockdown. We've got dates and all this kind of stuff, so we're going to have like a nice summer, hopefully. Now, obviously, I want a nice car to drive in the summer. You see where this is going. So I need my arches on, I need my wheels on, and I need it painted, and I need to see what I'm doing with the engine swap. So that needs to happen. But yes, I need to get this done as well, so I'm kind of trying to do everything. Still got the Civic to do, still got her to do, and what else was it? And I've got a few other things that are like not really JDM sort of thing to do, so I need to get busy. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Make sure you subscribe. You will see the next one if you do that, and hopefully I will see you again soon. Thank you very much.